Hello and welcome to Let's Grill John number 10. My name's Phil Makepeace. I'm with John Mackenzie. John, how are you feeling today about being grilled?
Yeah, I'm feeling okay about being grilled today. I'm feeling a little bit more mentally acuitous than usual, so
My
let's
goodness.
see how this goes.
What on earth does that mean? As in
No,
acute?
just a bit sharper.
Okay, right. Is that where it comes from? Acute?
Acuity, is it? I don't know.
I don't know. Or accurate?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Or is it accuracy? I don't know. So
Currently googling it.
There'll be a root somewhere, won't there? There'll be a...
I think it just means sharp. Yeah, sharpness or keenness of thought. So acute.
Very good.
Acuitous probably isn't a word, but we'll ignore that.
Okay. Well, you've just made a word up. That's fine. Okay, so today, tomorrow, when we record episode 21, we're going to be dealing with Mr. Farrugia because it is his birthday on Thursday. Now, we've just started to put episodes out on Friday. However, it is still Thursday in America when we release it, so we'll take it. We'll take it as a thing to do for Christry. And yeah, we're just going to be dealing with Mr. Farrugia and I think Iranian chess in general and his situation and various things that have happened. So we're going to be looking at a Farrugia game today. Have you seen a lot of Farrugia's games recently?
Not recently. I guess the Magnus Invitational was the last time I saw him play.
Okay. Yeah, he's got an interesting style, just very, very classical, but he's also got the ability, of course, to just absolutely unload these tactics. So he is really the complete player. He's just, I think the reason he's not quite there yet is possibly he sometimes goes too far with these mad ideas. Anyway, we will have a look at a game today. So we've got Farrugia versus Wang Ye from the 2016 Aeroflot Open in Moscow. So he was 13 then? So I mean he was still a disgusting player then, even at 13, but yeah. Okay, so we have a Fort Knox, which is, do you know what the Fort Knox defence is in the French, John?
I don't know, but I'm guessing it's no, I don't know.
What reputation do you think it has based on its name?
Yeah, defensive, I suppose.
Very solid, extremely solid, hard to break down. But we're going to see Mr. Farrugia, or Master Farrugia, crash down these walls as we go. So it's marked by this move, bishop to d7. The idea is to plonk the bishop onto c6 instead and have this long diagonal. So knight f3. White just basically does the same kind of things that they would do against most Frenches. Bishop comes to d3, all the pieces are on roughly the same squares. But the difference is that with the bishop on c6, which typifies the French for black is no longer available to them.
Pushing the c pawn?
Yeah, so it's in the way of this guy and it can't come to c5 at least for a bit. And this is really what typifies it. There's no real ambition from black. Black is just going to sit with these pawns. Very, very solid pawn structure. No holes in it whatsoever. All the pawns have complete potential. And black's just going to accept a lack of space in return for having zero ambition. It's not thought of as a particularly good line at top level play, but it is a very good weapon at club level because white basically has to try to break through without black coming at them in any way, so there are no automatic lines being opened or anything. Okay, so bishop d3 was played, knight d7, so it's a slightly weird square for the knight as well, but we'll get to a point where we can talk about it. c3, knight gf6, and yeah, so this is really the point of the setup where black has plonked this bishop, taken two moves, spent a couple of tempi getting this bishop in, to the game, and is then going to break out not with the pawn but with other pieces, trying to go after this knight. Because when you've got more space, as white does, it makes sense to try to have as many pieces on the board as possible, because that therefore black has to find homes for all of these rather than just a couple. However, there isn't much else here apart from knight takes knight, because if we try something like knight g3, then either way there's going to be some kind of swap, you'd think. And white would also quite like to have a tempo to do other stuff next. So knight takes, and then bishop f4. Big control over the e5 square is a thing in the French. Alright, bishop d6 was played by black, and now it's over to you, John. Based on what we've talked about so far with regards to space, and yeah, otherwise that's the only real thing that's going on here. White just has more space afforded to them by this pawn. So I would like a plan and a move here, please. Obviously we have this to deal with, but we can what would you like to do?
Well, I would attack down the king side, I think, for a number of reasons. You've obviously got a lot of space and access into the king side. You've got your pawn structure pointing that way.
Yep.
I'm just thinking about how you would defend the bishop. And I guess you're going to want to castle at some point.
Mm-hmm. Which side are you going to want to castle on?
Yeah, I don't know, because if you drop your bishop back on that diagonal to defend it on with a pawn, you're going to open up the pawn structure there. So I guess you could potentially castle queen side.
Okay. Do we know yet? Do we know which side we definitely want to castle on?
I guess we could wait and see.
I think that's basically, while you've got control of e5, there's going to be nothing coming down here at your king. Likewise, these diagonals are perfectly blocked as well, and there's no real way out for the queen anyway. So I think we can defer. I guess
you could push your g pawn and then to defend the bishop.
Okay.
If you wanted to, because then if the swap occurs, then
you might be in trouble. Oop, not that one. That would be bad. This
That's
one.
a bad move.
This one.
Yeah.
And suddenly black. I mean, owing to the thing with the French in general is that this bishop tends to become better than its opposite number. But in the Fort Knox, this is flipped a bit, where this bishop, the black bishop, is just as good as the white bishop. So you need to be careful on the light squares as well. Here, bishop e2 would be forced, and then suddenly you've got all sorts of things happening. It's just not going to quite work if you try and crowbar it in an open file that way. With the king slightly exposed. It's not really that the king is in the middle. It's more that this rook is undefended. It's that you're undefending this knight. Because black's king isn't really in any danger for exactly the same reasons that yours isn't. So would you be tempted to drop the bishop back onto g3? I think bishop g3 is perfectly good. That's also, because if you then
if you have the exchange, you're opening up the
absolutely, and now we're a bit better informed as to where we want to castle. We still may castle kingside here. That's not ridiculous. But yeah, you've got clear pressure coming in this direction. All of this stuff is whoops. That knight can't go there.
That's a special knight.
Yeah. All of this stuff could happen.
I'm not
knowledgeable
enough to make that kind of move yet.
So bishop g3 is definitely an option. However, again, it's an issue of space. And if you play bishop g3, you've gained space for the rook, but black definitely doesn't have to take this. I don't think black could probably play a move like maybe queen e7 or queen d6. Yeah, I think queen e7 is fine. And then maybe castle queenside themselves and start going this way. So there is a move here which just keeps the pressure on and takes advantage of the fact that there are going to be no open lines towards the white king, and that's knight e5. Gaining more space using this square. If this happens, probably take with the bishop, and then you've got the bishop pair in a fairly open position, which would be good for you. The elephant in the room is this move, though. And this is why do you think Farrugia isn't that concerned about this?
Because you can just attack back with the rook and then open the file,
and you've got
into the same pawn.
Go up to this one. It's gonna be a thing. So anyway, knight e5 was played by Farrugia, and then we had bishop takes. Anyway, bishop takes, knight d7. Bishop f4. Why not bishop takes g7?
Because you don't want to open that file because he's got the bishop looking down.
Exactly the same reason. White doesn't want to allow these pieces to attack with tempo, just like black doesn't. So, bishop f4 was played by Farrugia. And now it happened. Now bishop takes g2. And this is brave. It's brave by black. Because black is at least 2 moves away from castling on the queen side. And with the bishop pair, starting to invite other pieces into the game is going to be very, very tricky. So rook g1, bishop c6, and then rook takes g7. Objectively, this is actually still just about okay for black, but it's one of these positions that's going to require a lot of accuracy, and as we will see, Mr. Wang did not necessarily deal with it very well, but we'll carry on. So queen f6, very sensible move, developing a piece, clearing the way to castle, and attacking the rook and the bishop at the same time. So it does 4 jobs at the same time. How do we generally deal with forks? What do we like to have to do? What do we like to be able to do?
Move one to defend the other.
Yeah, but what's going to be the issue with rook g4 here?
You can then push. Or
can we? Can black do anything?
Counter fork with the bishop.
1 f3.
Oh no, that's not going to work.
So what you have here is the rook tied to the defense of the bishop. So if the rook can be kicked out of the way, black might be in.
So you just move the rook on. No, because then that's going to be taken. So attack the rook with something else. Just push your pawn on the H file.
Yeah, okay. So we've got a rook that in theory has to move, being attacked, that's also defending this guy. But again, white would have another intermezzo here. White would have a way of clearing the danger first.
With the rook?
No, because then the queen gets you.
Oh.
So there's another intermezzo here, another attacking move. White can play bishop to g5, getting out of this one, doing a counter attack. To do a counter attack, you have to do either a check or attack a piece bigger than the one that's being attacked. This satisfies that. Queen g7, the rook can then just escape properly to g3, and white is in business. So rook g4 is plausible. However, you can either move one to defend the other or move a different piece to defend both. And if we're going to get our pieces in the game,
you can move your queen up to g4.
Yeah, so queen g4 just deals with both of those, gets a new piece out, takes some more space, has a potential support there. So black has to castle. Okay, so we've reached a position where clearly black, I mean, basically in most positions where your opponent castles, that is like a calling card for you to have a real think, do an assessment of the position, work out exactly what you want to do. Because if they've castled that, you can reasonably assume there are no clear threats. Otherwise, they would play that immediately. So, take a minute here, John. I would like you to describe the position to me, and therefore what you might wish to do next.
It's all a bit precarious on the king's side. He'll probably try and kick away the rook, maybe, by moving the rook across onto the g file, and then it's.
But then the problem is you've got two pieces here for white. So black can't really play either of the rooks here. It will just get munched. So white has control of the only open file of the board, which is quite big news. You
could castle yourself and then kick the rook over onto the g file as well and put a load more pressure on.
Okay, so castles is a candidate move. Good.
The c7 square looks quite weak.
It's very juicy, isn't it?
Especially because you could just drop your queen back onto g3 and put the pressure on there.
What do we think?
Yeah, I'd be tempted to I don't know. I'd be tempted to castle at this point myself.
Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it at all. But again, it's going to give you. It doesn't. You're not going to gain any tempi with this move, right? I guess your rook gets into the game, but I think general advice: if you can't see a clear plan and you can't see any clear threats from your opponent, then castling will never be a bad move. So yeah, this is absolutely fine. But white does have this pawn that they can take.
Yeah, well, I was looking at that, but I always kind of feel like I do that just because I'm like, oh, a pawn.
Yeah. So
I'm not sure whether or not that really gives me much of an edge, but yeah, I guess this really starts breaking down the position.
It just gives you a long-term trump with this pawn on h2, an outside pass pawn when you still have a bishop that can look at the queening square. It's worth it. It's worth doing if they would, because again, if black had no clear threats last move, they're unlikely to here. Now this rook is doing, these pieces are doing some work. The rook and the queen, they're both not overloaded, but they're loaded. So there are some sort of tactics here that might exist, and one of them is bishop to f3. What's the idea?
Yeah, you're trying to move the queen, so
yeah, if the queen gets distracted, it will stop looking at the rook and it would be able to be taken. So where does the queen have to go, therefore, to keep doing the same job it's doing now? Which was to look at the bishop and the rook.
G3.
G3 would not work. Why not? What does black now have? This is tough. This is tricky stuff. But think about what's happened. Black has castled, white has not. What does black want to do now? Your last two moves have given black tempi to do stuff. This one is okay, but this one is too much because black can now answer in a very attacking way. Where would black like to be playing? If black's going to come after your king, where are they going to have to play?
E5.
Yeah, just open everything up, and yeah, this is now problematic because I think you really have to take the pawn. If you don't take the pawn, if you say move the bishop to not many squares. Bishop to e3, then I think now this starts to become a real issue. This bishop's just completely marooned, and black has loads of space owing to this pawn now. I think you've probably got to take this, after which knight takes, and then again probably bishop takes, but then look at these pieces, they're starting to really worry you. The other problem you've got with bishop f3 as a move is that it stops you castling. So what you need to do here really as white is to, because this isn't going anywhere quickly, is to try to create conditions in the position where you having not castled is less of a factor. And what might that be?
You could attack the queen.
Yeah, get the queens off. If you can't castle, if you haven't castled, getting the queens off makes it so that it's not such a big deal anymore. So we can play queen to g5 here, forcing the swap of queens. There's no way for this queen to avoid the swap. Black took it, bishop takes, f6. Bishop retreated, pawn to e5. So black's gaining some space, but they are still a pawn down. And then bishop g3, getting out of the way. Black decided to create a weakness on d4 and played rook h to e8. Now again, king's in danger, but because there's no queen on the board, it does not matter so much. White can just very simply hide this king on f1. Black played bishop to e4. What now? How are we going to start working towards converting this position? We've got an extra pawn, we've got the bishop pair, we've got a rook on the 7th. These are all excellent things. Our king is also fairly safe.
You can get your rook on the c file.
Beautiful. Simple chess is going to win the day when it comes to these kind of positions. You don't want to be too expansive. You don't want to. I mean, taking the bishop would also be quite good, because it's just a swap. Swaps are not bad when you're material ahead. But yeah, rook c1, very simple move with a very simple threat, developing your last piece. c6. Keep going. How can you keep the pressure up on the queen side now? Notice that when the c pawn moves, this rook's scope increases as well. Or potential scope. When we've got pinned pieces, what do we like to do to them?
Attack them. Push the pawn. Start pushing the b pawn.
b4 was played by Fallujah. Black hoovered off the bishops and played rook e4. Now what? The king can't move, which is quite big. This bishop is completely. These pieces are slicing it. So all we need to do really is just start opening things up, and we might have something good.
I guess you could stick your rook in between the two pawns if you wanted to.
Yeah, but we don't need to. Like, I mean, the rook c4 I think just gets knight e5. Looks a bit weird. Looks a bit fruity because you've now deliberately pinned this pawn. I think you're still doing fine here, but there's no need to play these defensive moves when we can attack.
So we don't like the pawn push. Sorry, you cut out a little bit there.
The pawn push is fine. I'm sure it would be. So which one?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know actually.
Which pawn is more expendable, do you think?
The outside. Oh no, you're not going to lose the pawn anyway, are you? At this point.
No, but whichever one you move, I'll take the other. So if you play this
okay.
one, I'll go here. If you move this one, I'll go here. Well, I'll have the opportunity to, at the very, 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 very least. Does it matter?
Well, either way, one of them's going to be isolated, right?
Well, either way, one of them's going to take this one next.
Yeah.
Oops, that's not how pawns work.
I'd be tempted to just go with the D pawn.
Okay. D5 was played by Faruja, but B5 is the choice of the computer, so who knows? Don't know. I think they both have the same thing. If you play B5, then what it does do is stop this move, which sort of starts blunting everything. Because this is what Wang played after D5. Played knight E5, but it doesn't really matter in the long term because pawn takes pawn, rook takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, double check, king B8. Again, king can't move, and you are 2 pawns ahead, but there's actually no good way to clear this knight out of the way or to threaten it properly. If you play f4, then you're interrupting the bishop. I mean, you're still completely winning here, but something like knight d3, f5 check, the knight just hops back in. So that's an option. We're still material ahead, but white just played a very, very prosaic move here, which started to really undermine the knight in a different way. So how might that work?
You could just swap off the knight and the bishop.
No, we want to undermine the knight, really. We want to keep this bishop is so much better than this knight at the moment.
Yeah.
The only reason this knight is on the board is because of this pawn. So how can we therefore undermine the knight?
Attack the defending pawn on f6.
Okay.
I guess you could move your bishop to g4 and sort of.
That's g4.
Sorry, h4.
But then you lose the pin.
Yeah.
So when you're attacking, you just want to keep as much the same as possible. Work out which of your pieces is doing the least work and make that one do the next sort of step.
There's no edge in just bringing your h7 rook over to c7 and then attacking d8.
You mean c8?
c8. Sorry.
I think black has this shot rook d1, which looks sexy. It just swaps off a pair of rooks. It gets rid of that threat at the very least. Something like this, and then black can just take this. And yeah, you're still a pawn up, and it's a good pawn.
Although you could go d. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we just need a way of ensuring that we can put pressure on this pawn. Keep focused on that. This had nothing to do with it.
Just drop your rook onto h6.
If you go rook h6, then the king will just take this, and then we lose the pin. It's not quite as good as what white can do, which is actually take advantage of the pin and keep control of this pawn by playing rook to f7. Instead, the knight can't take it because it's pinned. And yeah, you're trying to keep this king as tucked away as possible. Keep this king in the pin so that it can't take this pawn. The best move here, I don't know. I mean, this looks vaguely playable, but then what happens? The knight's being attacked. It's still pinned, and you can just quite happily gang up on it until it drops off. the board. So in this position after rook f7, Wang resigned. But I think the impression I got from looking through this game is that nothing happened, really. White just found themselves able to take a pawn. And then Black's attempts at Black's attempts at doing stuff in the middle didn't really work, because it meant that the focus switched, especially when this pawn disappeared, and Black was then unable to deal with the switch to the queen side. So yeah, just a very simple game really by Firouzja, and a very good demonstration of how to deal with the Fort Knox, just by playing very simple chess and not really leaving themselves open in any way at all. How was that?
Yeah, interesting.
I'm looking forward to hearing what Chris has to say about Firouzja and about Iranian chess in general, but we will see. Anyway, what else do we have to say? My first of all Blitz challenge against Hugh Breakin has been moved 24 hours, so it's no longer tonight. It will be tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m. We're recording episode 21 tomorrow. That will be out later this week. And yeah, thank you, John.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching. See you soon.